achievements. Trump said Musk has been treated unfairly. And despite trade disputes, Disney and Universal Films have secured Chinese exhibition approvals. This suggests Beijing is open to major American releases, with China being the second largest theatrical market. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
New Schools for New Orleans is committed to celebrating the hardworking teachers of New Orleans. Thank you to all the educators who came out to the 4th annual NOLA Teacher Fest at Champion Square. We had over 2,000 attendees. Special thank you to our sponsors, Allstate Sugar Bowl, Entergy New Orleans, Raising Cane's, Align Ed New Orleans, Agenda for Children, and Oshner Children's for their commitment and support. Teachers and school leaders, enjoy the summer break.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK.
Wake up, New Orleans. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Good Morning Show. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta Weiss. Shout out to my super producer, Nara Sanders.
All right.
And my co-pilot this week, the Will Sutton. Hey, Will.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, New Orleans.
Happy Thursday, everybody. And look, we started already, even before the mics became hot. We'll come bringing some stuff up in here. Will, what we talking about? What's new on the sanitation front?
Well, you know, we got stuff almost every day dealing with the trash contract in the French Quarter and who's going to pick up the trash. So we got a divide with City Council saying Sidney Torres has been doing, and Ivy Waste, been doing such a good job that they don't want the contract terminated. And you have Mayor Cantrell and her team saying maybe Sidney Torres has been doing a good job, but we have the right to terminate the contract and move forward with another provider, and that provider will be Henry Consulting. Now, there's a legal dispute about how to interpret the law between City Council and the mayor's office, well, actually the city attorney, who actually works for
That's a
City
lot of
Council.
This
works for the City Council and the mayor, but the city attorney has interpreted the law to say the mayor can take this action and they can move forward. So when I looked at the meeting that was held last week, JP made it very clear that here's the law and got them to answer questions that say the contract requires the city council's signature approved by the city council. And he asked, do you have that? No. And he went down the line. No, no, no. Yet the city attorney, who was not there, Denisha Turner, they said they were given legal advice to move forward if that was the decision. The CAO made the point of saying, we're the operational people. We have a boss. We're responding to our boss, and our boss has legal counsel that says this is okay. So we're the operations people, so we're moving forward. Now, Jimmy Harris, state senator from New Orleans, has introduced a bill that would move French Quarter trash sanitation pickup to the French Quarter Management Board. That's a 13-member board. And they would be able to move things forward with a trash contract if there's no resolution. That's an interesting move.
I'm not understanding any of this, and if I'm not understanding it, I'm certain lay people who are listening doesn't understand. It just sounds so convoluted. What do we mean the way we interpret the law? The law is the law. Why do we have different interpretations of a law? And if we do, then we need some clarity around the law. Because it almost sounds like Trumpism, because he's even saying he's the only person that could interpret laws. The judges don't know what they're talking about. When the judges disagree with him, they don't know what they're talking about. And they're not interpreting the law as he interprets the law.
Correct.
So,
And I think that's a good comparison. It might not be a Trump situation, but I think that's a good comparison because city councils generally, and J.P. Morrell in particular, who is an attorney, said, let me walk you through it. He pulls out the city charter. He reads this, and he even points to the specific section that says only the city finance director can change the bond. And he asked them who did that, and it wasn't a city finance director. So that's kind of a big question. And then now we have Jimmy Harris jumping into it, and the Senate Local and Municipal Affairs Committee approved this unanimously to move forward in the Senate
with allowing the French Quarter
Management Board.
So my question would be: are there other parts of the city that is governed by management boards?
I don't believe there are any other neighborhoods that have management boards. As you well know, there are a lot of neighborhoods with community organizations
and associations,
and smaller groups and bigger groups, and they even are incorporated and they have nonprofit status, and some of them are very grassroots.
This feels a little muddy
but this
to me.
is a full, organized, staffed operation. The French Quarter Management.
So are we saying then we're stripping the powers away from our elected officials and we're going to put them in the hands of a management board to decide on a garbage contract for the French Quarter?
Well, the management board has 13 members, and those 13 members include the head of the Vieux-Carré Commission. And then it also includes 2 mayoral appointees, an appointee of the local city council members choosing, Freddie King, and 9 appointees selected by various business and tourism groups.
I don't know that this feels right to me. This seems, I don't know. I don't know about this, because then it seems that it will go from being, I don't even know. I gotta marinate on that one, because I don't. Nah, I don't think I don't know. This feels muddier than what we're already standing in.
Well, I think that's right.
In my opinion,
and
I think this is going to set a dangerous precedent. Because I mean we're in essence saying that these folk are going to be in control if this measure passes or is made into law, should I say?
Right.
That these folk are going to decide who their garbage contract is. So are we going to stop at garbage contracts? Are they going to be making decisions for other contracts that govern on city services that taxpayers pay their money for? I'm just asking.
Let me remind everybody who may have missed it or forgot. There have been talks. I don't mean years ago. I mean like in the last few months and couple of years, especially since the Landry administration, about the possibility of the French Quarter neighborhood entirety being a state entity.
No, I'm not with that. Nope. The answer is no. The answer is no, because I see where you're. That's why it never made sense in my brain, because I see what you're trying to do there. Like we're not about to do this. Nope. And I'm interested in talking to Jimmy
Harris,
Jimmy
state
Harris,
senator.
the state senator. I'm interested in hearing from him as to what like, how did we get here for you to want to pitch something like this? Because I'm thinking about the rabbit hole that we're about to go down, and then where does it stop? So y'all want to operate? No, under state control.
I mean, clearly we need some more clarity.
Nope.
I mean, we need to know exactly what does the city attorney say and how does he
See, but
justify
that's the
that?
problem. How do these measures get unanimous approval from folk without the clarity? How we got all of this mud in the water, all of this gray area, and people are just passing measures as if it's the best thing for the community. There's too many unanswered questions. What does that mean, and where does it stop? What other city services are you going to put in the hands of these folk? Because I said that, when we were off air, I said, well, how far are we going? Are we going St. George's for? Because that's what it feel like to me. You're going to let people take public money, all this taxpayer money, and create their own little island where they don't have to, their taxes don't go back into the community that they don't want to help support, but you took money from those same communities to build your own. And now they're fighting for their own school system now. They want to be to be their own entity. That's where we're going.
They are. I mean, yeah.
That's where we're going.
They're electing the mayor. They're electing mayor.
And if they pull something like this off, I hope everybody in the East is paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
Because that would be glorious to see.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't do anything in this city without the permission of the voting bloc of New Orleans East. So if they're allowed to pull this off, I hope the powers that be in the East are paying attention, i.e. the tax-paying citizens of New Orleans
Well,
East.
that's why I wanted to bring it up, because, this is in the state legislature. We already have what's going down in City Hall. So people will know, and they can look up Louisiana Senate Bill 195. 195. So it's at the next step. It's beyond being introduced. It's past the first committee. So there's a process in the legislature.
And Mr. Journalist, tell me the name of that group again, the French Quarter what?
The French Quarter Management Board.
So
they have their own website.
So New Orleans East doesn't have a management board. So
no.
Step one, we need to figure out how to comprise a management board for all of the chronic voting bloc of New Orleans East. And I happen to know a lady that lives out there that has a very, very astute political mind.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she's listening. Maybe you need to gather the troops and y'all start trying to figure out what we need to do to protect New Orleans East and make certain that y'all can make some decisions for yourselves. Because if it's just that easy, if it's just that simple, create your management board, get you a state rep to put a piece of legislation. I don't know. This sounds weird.
And some money. And some money.
And we know they have money.
And some money.
New Orleans East has money. Those are chronic, obsessive voters. Right? And everybody knows. Anybody who's been going to the voting poll long enough knows that New Orleans East rings the bell for the state of for this for anything in this city as it relates to politics. So this feels, I don't know how that feel to me, Will.
Yeah, and it looks like the bill is very specific to the French Quarter and very specific to sanitation contracts in the French Quarter.
And I wonder why, because also, as we heard our councilman say yesterday, there are very few things the residents and the business
agree on.
Climate out there agree on. And this is one of the things that they supposedly agree on. But we know the old adage, an enemy of my enemy is my friend. Mm-hmm. Right? That's how I look at this thing. I just don't like how people think that they can pull a wool over our eyes and we're just not critical thinkers. We are critical thinkers, and I want to understand where does that stop. That sounds like a rabbit hole. Because if I can get control of my sanitation contract and I can get control of other parts of the city government that governs us, right? I could take control of that too, right? We don't have to wait for the council or wait for the mayor. In a minute, we're going to have our own arm of police, maybe.
Well,
I heard there are some communities that already have that.
I'd really love to hear directly from the city attorney, from City Council President J.P. Morrell, and from now Jimmy Harris, who's introduced legislation to deal with this situation.
I'm actually Nara, can we put an email out to Jimmy Harris's team to see if anybody from his camp can come and give us some insight as to,
I mean, it's a whole different thing. This is a whole different thing
this?
than what we've been talking about.
Yeah, it feels like a whole different thing, but to people, but to me, it feels like another part of a bigger plan. That's what it feels like to me. Mm-hmm. I don't think any of this is separate and apart. I think it's all working together. I think And you know, anytime that there's like a roadblock or a stoppage, they already have a solution for it, or they already formulating some plan for it. I don't like the way that sounds, but somebody could enlighten me. Maybe I'm thinking about it wrong.
For y'all who have to get up and go, it's 7:16 a.m. You're listening to WBOK. The talk line is 504-582-9422. What do you think? 504-582-9422.
It ain't about it. I hope that the folk who always wield the political power in this city, everybody know you got to go through the East. I hope they're listening. I hope all of the home owning Black folk in New Orleans East are listening, because it seems to me that we just don't always know how to play the game, because we don't know what game is being played. So it's time, you know, we fully tap into what is happening around us, so that we can ensure that our folk and our people who are indigenous to this community are taken care of as well. Because I don't know, that don't sound right. I would love to hear from Jimmy Harris's team, of Jimmy Harris himself, because it seems like a slippery slope.
So let me read this part of James Finn's story in the Times-Picayune, because Council President J.P. Morrell testified in favor of the bill. Speaking in support of Harris's bill Wednesday, Council President J.P. Morrell, who has led the charge against Cantrell's handling of Henry's contract, said the bill would move the city out of what has become an increasingly toxic political fight. Quote, "This is not about the mayor and the council fighting," close quote, said Morrell, who spoke on behalf of himself and council member Freddie King III. King's district includes the French Quarter. What it is about, that the termination of that emergency contract early has created an artificial crisis where there is a possibility of not having trash pickup on August 1, Morrell added. Whether you're in favor of the council's position or the mayor's position, those people deserve to have their trash picked up. In favor of the bill.
What I heard in that was, this is a solution to the toxic political back and forth between the council and the mayor. So are we going to abandon our responsibilities each and every time there's a toxic political back and forth between the council and the mayor? Are we going to just look for ways to give up our power? Because this is what it sounds like to me. This will be a decision that is stripped away from our local government and given to a management organization for a neighborhood. And J.P. Morrell is in support of that. Is that what the article says?
Yeah.
And then it says he's speaking on behalf of Freddie King as well. So Freddie King
what he said.
Is on board with this. So yeah,
according to James Finn's report,
I need some clarity.
J.P. Morrell was speaking on his behalf and on behalf of Councilman King.
Yeah, well, we have to go to break around here, but I just want to bug your ear about an event that is happening on May the 9th, Friday, May the 9th at 9 p.m. At Boomtown. Is in partnership with Fion Productions and Boomtown Casinos. They're going to have a teacher shower in honor of Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. You're going to bring a teacher, an uplifting gift to celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week. The mental health of our teachers matters, and this is also a way for you to nominate teachers as well. You can go to any of the social media platforms for Fion Productions. I believe it's all over my social media at this point, to nominate a teacher that you want to be honored at this teacher shower, which is taking place Friday, May 9th, 9 p.m. In partnership with Fion Productions and Boomtown. It is happening at Boomtown Casinos Friday, May 9th, 9 p.m. It's a teacher shower, y'all. The mental health of our teachers matters. Y'all should join me. Pull up, pull over. I'm going to be there. We're going to go to break, but when we come back, y'all know each and every Thursday is Congressman Troy Carter Thursdays here on WBOK. We're excited to be in conversation with our councilman, and if you want to join that conversation, the number here is 504-582-9422. We're going to catch y'all on the other side. This is WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
All day long.
This is the Bloomberg Black Business Beat. Former NBA All-Star Richard Jefferson was a victim of fraud. A person he hired as an assistant stole almost $5 million from him over the course of several years.
When 2008 and that financial crisis hit and everyone started checking their books to make sure everything was good, it was like, wait a second, something's not right.
While the incident could have left Jefferson bitter, in a conversation on Bloomberg, he talked about why he viewed it as a learning experience.
If you would have told me the day I got drafted that I would own my home, my mom and dad would own their home, and neither of us would have to work again, I would sign up. That's the goal, is to change your life. My life was changed, right? That's how I kept myself not being like, woe is me. And honestly, sometimes it's about your L's.
Jefferson isn't ashamed to talk about it either. He wants his experience to serve as a cautionary tale for young athletes. I'm Bloomberg's Justin Milliner on the Black Business Beat.
On Auto Trends with JeffCars.com, here's a snippet of some of what we cover. GPS pioneer Gladys West.
We worked long hours computing trajectory orbits and satellite orbits, trying to get the data and everything correct enough.
Auto analyst Mark Bland.
14 new vehicle deals that happen in this country out of every 100 that women don't have a fingerprint on.
To tune in, check out Auto Trends with JeffCars.com, Saturdays at 4 p.m. on WBOK, what New Orleans is talking about.
If Ernest Hemingway was alive today, would he say this to you?
Shakespeare, Mark Twain, Edgar Allan Poe, all great writers. And after reading your book, I simply must add you to the list.
Wait, you don't have a book yet. So make a free call to Page Publishing. Turn your book idea into publishing gold.
800-215-6818. 800-215-6818. That's 800-215-6818.
I went hands-free.
I went hands-free.
I went hands-free.
I went hands-free with Skechers Slip-ins.
Join the millions of people who are celebrating going hands-free with Skechers Slip-ins. Footwear you just step into and they're on.
It's crazy how something as simple as a pair of shoes have made my life better.
After trying Skechers Slip-ins, I want all my shoes to have this technology.
See what everybody can't stop talking about. Go hands-free with Skechers Slip-ins at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
NOLA Public Schools is excited for the rest of this 24-25 school year journey with our families, watching our students dive into learning, growth, and success. As the school year continues, our dedicated educators are focused on keeping every student engaged and motivated. Let's keep embracing new challenges, celebrating achievements, and supporting each other to make the rest of this year even more impactful. Stay connected with your school and NOLA PS through our social media channels for updates and resources. We're here to help our scholars attend today, achieve tomorrow.
The legendary Broadway show is back. The Wiz. The Chicago Tribune raves. It's an eye-popping, high-intensity revival and a cause for celebration. The music, the voices, the legend returns. Entertainment Weekly says, run, don't ease on down to this spectacular revival. The Wiz. Playing the Sanger Theater May 13th through 18th. Tickets at BroadwayInNewOrleans.com.
The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation is the nonprofit organization that owns the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, presented by Shell. With the funds generated from Jazz Fest, the foundation invests in Louisiana communities through economic development, cultural enrichment, and free educational programs. To learn more about the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation, please visit us at www.jazzandheritage.org.
Making a difference in the community. WBOK 1230 AM.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK.
And we are back. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta White. Shout out to my co-pilot this week, the Will Sutton. Hey, Will.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, New Orleans.
And if you know what Thursdays are about, Thursdays are reserved for our congressman, the one and only Troy Carter. Good morning, Congressman. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. How you feeling this morning?
I'm feeling fantastic. Dr. Wyatt, how are you today? Will, how you doing, brother?
Fabulous, Kappa, man.
Oh, Lord,
all right. Everybody should be.
Here we go. So, Congressman, listen, I was introing you as I always do, and then they handed me this paper telling me who my guests were. And I know you had something to do with setting me up this morning. And I'm not going to give away the surprise until the surprise could be given away. But I'm excited to talk to you this morning. And namely with this piece on the president having the authority to deport United States citizens. Can we talk about that?
It is. I had the opportunity to lead a delegation of senators, a senator, and members of Congress. Senator Markey from Massachusetts, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley from Massachusetts, Jim McGovern from Massachusetts, and my dear friend and ranking member of Homeland Security, Benny Thompson from Mississippi, to go to Jena, Louisiana, and to go to Bizio, Louisiana, to do a wellness check on the individuals that have been sent to Louisiana in the Trump's attempt to deport these individuals, not because they broke any laws, but because they didn't like what they had to say. Mahmoud Khalil, who said to me and others, and his history proves it because we researched what he said, that he is not anti-Semitic at all. He is not pro-Hamas at all. He merely wants to ensure that his homeland of Gaza and Palestine is being treated humanely. And who wouldn't do that? And then, secondly, Rumeysa Ozturk, a graduate student at Tufts who's preparing to defend her dissertation for a PhD, merely wrote an op-ed in her school newspaper that Trump didn't like. She's also a student visa holder. Mr. Khalil is a green card holder. They are in our country legally. They've broken no laws. Now, here's the magic of our First Amendment. Freedom of speech is not conditioned on if you like that speech, if you agree with that speech, if you subscribe to that philosophical or theoretical action behind the speech. No, it is not conditioned. It is free speech. The second part of the greatest violation is the Fifth Amendment, which is due process. Neither of the people that I mentioned were given due process. I'm going to give you a third one, which is Wendy Brito, who is from Marrero. Wendy is married to an American citizen. She has 3 children that were born in the U.S., which makes them United States citizens. She went in for her routine checkup with ICE, as she customarily does. She volunteers at her kid's school. Her husband works 2 jobs, American citizen. She went in, they detained her, and they sent her to Bizil. No opportunity to talk to their lawyers. You know, if this is happening to Americans and to citizens, we should all be very, very afraid. In the case of Rumeysa Ozturk, she wrote a letter, an op-ed in her school newspaper. See, the danger here is that if U.S. citizens are being deported because you don't like what they said, it's unconstitutional. But here's the biggest part now, because our checks and balances depend on our ability to have each of our separate but co-equal branches doing their jobs. The Supreme Court, in a 9-0 ruling, you don't see very many 9-0s in this Supreme Court. In a 9-0 ruling, ruled that the president was out of line and could not deport this individual without due process. Heretofore, today, as we stand, the president has still denied those directives to bring them back. And when we talk about constitutional crises, we're in a constitutional crisis. Because when the president has now pressed to test the waters, the Supreme Court told him to do something. He so far is defying it. we're in trouble because the only arbiter we have left to determine its constitutionality and to enforce what appears to be a president that wants to be a king, a dictator, an oligarch. The last test we have is the Supreme Court to stop him. And so we're waiting with bated breath. We're putting pressure every single day. Do your jobs. And this is why the community has to be a part of that third C that you often hear me talk about. The community has to be engaged and be a part of the process of having these discussions. And that's why I'm so grateful to you and WBOK and our incredible listening audience who tune in to get updates, to share where we are, what we're doing, and how we're fighting back. But the Supreme Court, which is the ultimate arbiter of what happens at this point, has to step up and do the job. Yesterday in the Judiciary Committee, there was an amendment. There was an amendment that was offered that was very plain and clear, and the amendment simply said that no U.S. citizen shall be deported as a part of not being in this country. You know what? Write down party lines. Democrats voted for it. Republicans voted against it. How do you vote against an amendment that reaffirms what the United States Constitution says? You cannot deport an American citizen. They voted against it. What does that say to you? What is your message? What are they up to? What are they up to when you think it's okay? Not because you broke a law, but because I didn't like what you said. In 1933, Nazi Germany had a fellow doing the same stuff. Hitler. You look at the first 100 days of this president's service as president. He has started shutting out the mainstream media. Only media that he likes is allowed to come to his press conferences. Controlling the military, getting rid of a four-star general who was a celebrated four-star general who happened to be African-American, but beyond that was the most prepared with a stellar resume and removed for no reason. Getting rid of other leaders in the military who would push back and replacing them with people who would be rubber stamps. Getting rid of programming that would secure our intelligence and having a Secretary of Defense who transmits classified information on a signal chat, not once, not twice, but 3 times.
Congressman, how do we deal with a president whose team acknowledges they made a mistake with deporting a man and is ordered by the court to bring the man back, and they're ignoring the court order? It seems like this is the development of a pattern. We want you to rule the way we expect you to rule, and if you don't, no matter what you say, we're going to do what we do.
And that's exactly what I just said just moments ago, Will. This is what this president is doing. He is defying what the Supreme Court says, because just like they want to deport people when you don't like what they say, he wants to ignore you when he doesn't like what you say.
So what's the next step? I mean, because this is what the man is doing.
But before we get to the next step, Congressman, there's a caller on the other line that we're going to add to the call, and I know you had a lot to do with this one. I can't even gather myself.
And I suspect that this person that's going to come on the phone will have a lot to say about what we're talking about right now. It's a very dear friend of mine, my little sister from the great state of Texas, who is a fireball leader in the Democratic caucus, a fireball leader in our country, a voice to be reckoned with, a powerful sister who I promised my other little sister, Dr. Wyatt, that I was going to get her to come on to the world-class WBOK And Will, you get a treat today because now you get to hear the voice that's going to come on next, who I'm so incredibly proud of, my baby sister, the outstanding member from Texas, the outstanding Jasmine Crockett.
Oh, my God.
Hey! Good morning, good morning, good
you were
morning.
talking
Good
about,
morning,
but
Congresswoman.
Okay, I'm here.
Listen.
Good morning, y'all.
I don't know if you know how I feel about you.
Her schedule is crazy as all get out, but she committed that she's going to be here. She's here. She is a dynamic leader. We could not be more proud of her.
I know I am, and I love my congressman, but he's going to have to take a back seat today because this is everything
sit back and enjoy the ride. It's all your show, baby.
When he says that he is my big brother, he really means that. You know, a lot of people say a lot of stuff. But this is somebody that always has my back, my front, and my sides. So, you know, it's only certain people, number one, that can get me up when I'm supposed to be packing and get me doing something else. But no, whatever he ever asks of me, I'm always down because he always has my back. So great to be here with y'all. Hello, Louisiana, okay? And yeah, let's get to it.
Let's get to it. Well, listen, I want to welcome you to the Good Morning Show. I'm Dr. Ashanta White. I'm excited to talk to you. My co-pilot this morning is the Will Sutton. So we have questions, and one of the questions we'll ask our Congressman Troy Carter is the question I actually want him to propose to you, which is, what do we do with a president who defies?
So we reached a point where we have three branches of government, supposedly equal branches of government. But this president seems to be in a place where we want the courts to rule the way we want you to rule. And then if you don't do it, we're going to ignore you, even though you're a branch of government that should have a say. Now, we may agree or disagree with court rulings, but in the past, for many years, we have fought about different court rulings, but in the end, that is the ruling. Trump seems to be ignoring that, and if he's ignoring that on these deportation issues, how are we going to deal with him?
Will, you are so nice.
He is.
He seems to be ignoring the law. No, not this president, not the criminal, not the 34-count convicted criminal who had other cases that were pending, not the guy that had been found liable in so many civil courts, not the guy that is currently shaking down law firms and shaking down various TV outlets, not that guy. I'm sure none of us would ever imagine that this would be the guy that would violate the law. So, frankly, we're in a constitutional crisis. In fact, I heard your congressman talking about some of the things that happened in judiciary, which I was in judiciary till about 11 p.m. last night, where we were proposing amendment after amendment after amendment. And some of them, in fact, one of them specifically dealt with, because right now we're going through reconciliation, which is all about money, basically. And so we were basically saying that if certain things were done or not done, then it would trigger for certain funds to stop going certain places, right? Mm-hmm. So the whole issue around deporting U.S. citizens, because ICE, the I in ICE stands for immigration. Well, there are no immigration issues when it comes to, say, someone who is a citizen, right? And so the idea that we would continue to pay ICE to deport U.S. citizens seems a bit contradictory. So we know that Elon Musk didn't do his job. Actually, he did what he set out to do, which was not what they proclaimed he would do, which would be to provide actual savings. So we feel like we can save the American taxpayer some dollars by just simple amendments like don't go, and it's not even deporting because you can't deport somebody who's U.S. Don't go kidnapping or disappearing people to a whole other country. Like, don't do that and think that we're going to pay you. In fact, we found that in their proposed markup, which is what we were doing, they literally had information saying that there was all this money that they're proposing in bonuses for those that work for Homeland. And when they looked at how much it would be, it amounted to a bonus of approximately $44,000 per person at the agency. A bonus of $44,000. And we're talking about people that are terrorizing people, kicking down doors, going and breaking into cars, grabbing U.S. citizens, throwing them into custody, taking people and sending them out the country. And obviously, they don't have anything to do with due process. But nevertheless, the list goes on and on and on. And what we have to really reckon with is that while the founders' intent was truly profound in the things that they did, and they never anticipated that the American people would go out and elect a thug like we have, well, we did. So things are a little broken right now because there is a bit of common decency and common sense that is built into the fabric of what we are supposed to be doing. And so let me just say I applaud the courts because even his Supreme Court has decided to stand up to him. The question is, as we are now going through our very first iteration of what looks like it may be a contempt action, it will be interesting to see what happens. That is going to spell out everything about what goes next, because the way that you deal with somebody who decides to intentionally ignore a court order is through contempt. And one of the ways that you can hold somebody in contempt is by jailing them. So we will see how the courts decide to move and how the administration decides to react. Right now, I had no idea or had no thoughts about who could physically be jailed if we were going to go there. But it seems like now Trump did an interview here recently where he specifically was talking about he could pick up the phone and make a call and get the man back. So it sounds like he may end up in front of a judge in a second to explain why he is not doing it if he knows that he can do it. So this is one of those things that will continually be developing. But if the courts fail to hold anybody in contempt and if they continue to violate the law, I think that we only have a few options. One is to go after these attorneys that are working on his behalf and not actually doing what they swore their oath to do. So we may have to go after their bar cards, which would mean that they can't go into the courts and can't continue to do this. And that would send a message that if you are going to pledge your loyalty to him versus the Constitution, you won't have the ability to practice law anymore. But we will have to get very creative, think outside the box, and most importantly, we are going to have to participate in elections.
Well, which brings me to this question: with his overall approval rating is tanking. My question is, how is it that the members of Congress who represent their constituents all over this country are not listening to what their constituents are saying if they are saying they're disapproving of this president in every measure that you can measure a president? And why aren't the people in the House and the Senate listening to the constituents who elected them to serve the will of the people?
Well, I'm not one of them.
We know you are.
But I will tell you that there are those that are afraid that they are about to lose the House, and if they don't lose the House, then I don't know what is going on. These people have decided to come to Congress and not represent the interests of the people that they serve. If I'm being perfectly honest, it's been a long time since the Republicans have represented the interests of the people that they serve. They have relied on a lack of information getting to a lot of their constituency, because when we look at it overall, overwhelmingly, Republicans represent rural America. And rural America, things are a little tricky, right? Like, we know that when it came down to things such as making sure that the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act could be passed, which included in that was broadband, what they were trying to do, and this was led by Democrats, even though you had a couple of Republicans that joined in, they were trying to do things such as make sure that they increased access to communication abilities. I mean, here it is, we're on the radio. We know that in a lot of our rural areas, for the longest, they have relied on radio to get a lot of their information. They still use AM radio a lot. And so when you're talking about like being able to really access some of that stuff, they really weren't getting as much good internet access, right? And now it's almost like it's a double-edged sword, because it's like we wanted to make sure that people just had better access. But heck, now even on the internet, they've got all of these very right-wing lying people out there that are inundating them with lies, right? And so because of just the way that rural America is kind of set up, it is more cumbersome and more difficult to communicate. But I think that we have to go tell the real stories. We have to tell them that the reasons that their hospitals have been shutting down for years has been because of Republican policies in general. And now it's going to be absolutely front and center as they cut Medicaid and Medicare, and they go after SNAP benefits, where rural America is using more of those than urban America, even though the face of SNAP benefits for many of them is somebody that is in inner city urban America. So I think that this is probably the best education that some of their constituents can get about the fact that they actually have been passing policies for a very long time that have done nothing but harm them.
And too, Congresswoman, I want to ask you about this idea that's been floating around that the trucking industry is possibly going to come to a complete halt, like the end of May, the beginning of June. And what does that mean for food insufficiency for this country? Like, people are going to starve if the trucking industry comes to a complete standstill. What can we do to turn the tide there?
Well, I hate to say it, but I don't even know if it's going to be that long. I got in very late from judiciary, and I wanted to catch up on what was happening in the real world. And so I was able to stay up for a little bit just trying to catch up. And I ran across a number of reports that are talking about the ports.
Yes.
You're talking about the trucks.
Yes.
Well, everything comes from the ports in the first place, right? So, you know, the idea that we haven't educated people on the fact that we really are a global economy, everything doesn't happen in the United States and then stay in the United States. There's a lot of incoming and outgoing overall. And so when we aren't getting things at the ports, and then at the ports they are picked up by trucks, and they are usually either continue on their path on a truck and or train, right?
Yeah.
So literally it is, and or planes, right? So we have all of these modes of communication or transportation to be able to move goods in and out of the United States. And so if the ports are already empty, I literally saw like video footage. That is not a good sign. And we know that Walmart and Target and other big box stores, the leaders, the CEOs went to sit down with this president a week or two ago to warn him that literally the shelves will look like they looked during COVID. And so here's the deal. We went through some crazy times during COVID because our supply chains were really messed up, because everything came to a halt because of the pandemic. It wasn't any individual's fault. It was the global pandemic. Well, right now, let me tell you, it's not a global pandemic. It is one individual's fault. And I say it's his fault, but let me just say this. It is one individual that was the catalyst. It is the fault of everybody that stands by and is complicit. And that is those members of the House as well as the Senate that you talked about, because honestly, he does not have the authority to invoke these tariffs in the first place. He invokes basically emergency fake powers, which we do have emergency powers. Let me not say that those are fake. He faked the emergency to invoke the powers in the first place. And we had an opportunity. There was a vote in the Senate to actually revoke that and take the power back so that we could stop him and save us. And unfortunately, the vote was 49-49. And I will applaud those 3 Republican senators that did vote with the Democrats, but we needed one more vote. And we could have stopped him, or at least begun the process, because the Senate would have started it and then it would have had to come to the House.
And I also, because I follow you, by the way, so I also saw a video you put up about members of the of Congress giving the president the ability to now deport United States citizens. Can you talk to us about what happened inside the chambers?
Yeah, so the thing was, like, let me not conflate it. So what they did is they stood with him in allowing him to do it. Now, the law is clear. You can't do it, okay?
Right.
Like, the law is clear that it can't be done. That is constitutional. I mean, I don't even know where you send a non-citizen. They don't want to take other people. They're not letting people dump people over here. So I don't know how you think you can dump a citizen somewhere. So, you know, whatever. But what we were trying to do, because we are in reconciliation, is at least say we are not going to fund this type of activity. And they voted against it. They're okay with funding it. And I'm like, it's illegal. Like, why would y'all fund that, right? So that was the thing. We put it up because everything that we're doing is tied to money in some way as we're going through these markups, as we're going through reconciliation. And this is where, you know, the committees really to watch on this are going to be the Agriculture Committee, because the SNAP benefits, they've been charged with cutting $220 billion out of ag. The only place to get it is SNAP benefits. So, I mean, it may not matter that we won't have food because they're trying to take the money away for people to be able to get the food anyway. And then the other one is going to be Energy and Commerce, and that is where the Medicaid cuts will have to come, because they have to cut $880 billion, and that is the only place that you can get it. So those are the real committees to kind of watch. We did a lot of interesting amendments to try to recoup some money and try to work to do some things in judiciary. And the things, they literally would not even speak to defend their actions. We started calling on individual Republicans to try to get them to speak, and they would not even debate our amendments. Like, they refused because they have nothing to say. There is no defense for the things that they were voting for. I mean, we asked them to, you know, we had an amendment as it relates to due process and not funding, you know, this idea that we will do things that have to do with violating due process. They wouldn't do it. We had things about them not voting or not funding when there is a situation where they violate a court order. If they decide they're going to violate, as we were talking about earlier, a court order, and we were like, you got to defund it. They didn't want to do that. But they did add over $1 billion in new spending for lawyers for ICE. So I'm like, oh, okay. And they do need it, because all they're doing is breaking the law. So they going to need a lot of lawyers. But I don't want to pay for that.
Do you remember who the three Republicans were who did not go along with things?
On the Senate side, I know it was Murkowski, and that's all I got for you.
Okay, no problem. I'll look it up.
She's one that we can typically look to.
Mm-hmm.
So, Congressman, what is our call to action? Like, how do we help you guys do what needs to be done? I know our congressman has 3 C's, you know, talking about Congress, the courts, and community, which we push here heavily at WBOK. But what is it from your purview? What is something we can do? Do we call all of these individual representatives? Do we email them? What call of action can we put together as constituents on the ground to help push what you guys are trying to do in Congress?
And in my honest opinion, is education. I mean, the numbers are clear. Those that are educated with facts and the truth, they vote one way, right?
Yeah.
And so what I tell people all the time is that nobody really wants to listen to a politician. They always look at us and they believe that there is some alternative, like, ulterior motive that we have, right? And so they're just like, oh, that's their job, you know. And I used to go out and say things like, you know, some people don't want to listen to politicians because they believe that some of them are liars, and, well, many of them are, right? And some of them are criminals, and, well, many of them are. So I get it, right? But they will listen to their sorority sister, their fraternity brother, their mother, their brother, their sister, their church member, their coworker. And so it's important that those of us that are doing the research, that we not just hold it or talk to our other politically engaged friends, because everyone around you, they may not be politically engaged, but they are politically impacted. And so it is important that we have these conversations. And I will tell you that don't ever underestimate people's aptitude or appetite for some of this information. I had an opportunity, the last thing I'll say before I let y'all go, to go and speak at one of my schools. And I tell people all the time I'm a bad politician, because here it was the first week of our 2-week recess, and I only had one day in district. But the one thing I absolutely wanted to do was go and talk to kiddos at one of my schools. I don't have kids of my own, so I can't go home and take a check and know kind of how children are feeling and what's going on. And so I go into one of my junior high schools, and I'm talking to kids. I went into classrooms of 6th graders and 7th graders, and I'm asking them about, what it is that they're hearing about, if they're worried about anything and that kind of stuff. So, every classroom I went into, they talked to me about tariffs. Now, I can guarantee you, I don't really remember much about junior high, but I can guarantee you that I wasn't talking about tariffs. And I probably didn't fully understand them in junior high. And to be perfectly honest, that was the only thing that Donald Trump was really honest about on the campaign trail. He made it clear that he had this whole idea about putting tariffs on people. And to be perfectly honest, the average American did not understand it either.
Right.
So the fact that we have 6th and 7th graders that are talking about tariffs, and I'm like, okay, let me see if these kids know it. I'm asking, why y'all talking about tariffs? Like, y'all ain't paying for nothing. Like, what is happening, right? And so their parents have been talking to them, right, about the tariffs. And so, and this is before he said, maybe the kids won't get $30, they'll get $2. This is before all of this. This is like 2 weeks ago. So in one of the classes, because I always do this thing where I pick a little president and I set up a house and I set up a Senate and we go at it. So the little president in one of my classes, I said, what is a tariff? Explain to me what you believe is happening. He said, well, my mama was about to buy this Mercedes. And he said, and the price went up. The price changed a lot. And so she had to settle for a Ford, and she wasn't happy about it, but, that's what she had to do. And I was like, man, okay, you get it. Right? It's like, yes. You get it. So no, like it has been, I think that we have a really good opportunity to engage in a deeper level of conversation with everyone around us about how global supply chains work, and how when we went through COVID and how when we were coming out, Joe Biden really was successful, even though there still was pain that we were feeling. We are now understanding how bad the pain really could have been, and that we really were recovering at a better rate. We literally were at the top of our class as it relates to recovering and getting the supply chains back up, and the legislation that members like Troy Carter voted for to make sure that we could get the CHIPS and Science Act, which was actually bringing manufacturing back to this country. We know that there's a multi-billion-dollar facility in Ohio, who did not vote the right way, but in Ohio from Samsung that they were bringing. There is a multi-billion-dollar facility that is going out in Arizona. There's a multi-billion-dollar facility going into Texas and other places around this country, because he knew how to incentivize people to come and build chips here. So next time, if there's a next time with the pandemic, that meant that our supply chains would not be strained as much, because we would not be solely reliant on getting the vast majority of our chips out of Taiwan or out of China, right? And so this was about actually doing something, and it's the high tech and it's the good paying jobs, right? Like, this is the type of things that you want to bring here, because we don't want to tell people, yes, we got new jobs, but they are just more working poor jobs. That's not doing anything for people.
On education and engagement, the State of the People Power Tour started in Atlanta. They were in Durham yesterday. They're coming to New Orleans next week. Will you be with us?
I am only in Nolans. Yes, I will be. That is the only stop I'm doing.
Well, listen, I am looking forward to personally meeting you myself, and I want to thank you for your bravery in Congress and what you do, not just for the folk of Texas, but for all of us who are watching. You stand up and unapologetically speak truth to power, and you have an absolute fan in me, and I don't fan out behind anybody. but I want you to know.
I appreciate that, but I'm gonna tell you that you are not a fan, but we are sisters in the fight.
Absolutely. And I just want, I really, really don't want you to feel like you're alone. I'm in Louisiana, but we got your back over here. We pay attention. And just like we hold our congressmen down, we hold you down too. So thank you for taking part of your morning to share it with us and our listening audience. We appreciate you so very much, Congresswoman.
Thank you.
I told you guys would have a dynamic treat with this outstanding member of Congress from Texas 30. She's a star. She's passionate. She's real. You can touch her. You can feel her. She's the truth.
Yeah, thank you for that, Congressman. We appreciate you too. I'm sorry I had to put you on the back burner today, but
I gladly listen.
What a gift! What a gift!
I gladly took the back burner because I promised my sister Alicia, and I'm giving you a shout out, Alicia. I know you're listening. That we were going to bring my little sister here to impart her wisdom, her love, and let me just tell you this: everything you heard today is what she is and who she is, 24/7. When I tell you she is a star, she's a star in the best way because it's not about her. It's all about the people.
Yeah.
And she steps up. She speaks out. I'm so proud of her, so happy. My son is going to be graduating this week and next weekend, so I will not be in for the State of the People, but Jasmine will be there to speak. And I will be very well represented by having her here. My youngest son will be graduating from D. Howard University, and so I will not be able to be present. But I will be there in spirit through my little sister, Jasmine Crockett, who's an outstanding lawyer, activist, person, people, fighter, a giant among many. So bless you, Jasmine, for spending some time with us when I know your time is very premium. Bless WBOK. You, Dr. Wyatt, and Will Sutton, and all the incredible listeners at WBOK. I promised you I'd get her, and I know you enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Congressman. Have a blessed the rest of your day.
God bless you all.
All righty. Listen, we got to go to break, y'all. I'm full. I could go home right now. But when we come back, we're going to talk to the one and only Kathy Hamburg from the Amistad Research Center. Y'all stay with us right here, WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
National World War II Museum. Located in the Warehouse District of New Orleans, the National World War II Museum tells the story of America's experience in the war that changed the world, why it was fought, how it was won, and what it means today. Visit them online at www.nationalww2museum.org for time tickets and safety information.
Visit DePaul's new Algiers Health Center at 2801 General de Gaulle Drive to receive primary and preventive care for both adults and children. Services also include behavioral health, imaging, and on-site pharmacy, vision, Medicaid enrollment assistance, and more. For appointments, visit DePaulCommunityHealthCenters.org or call 504-207-3060.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet, find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay. Things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
WBOK New Orleans. Home of the Good Morning Show, 7 to 9 a.m. weekdays.
This news report is brought to you by New Schools for New Orleans.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. The Supreme Court is deciding if Oklahoma's first taxpayer-funded religious charter school can proceed. Oklahoma Attorney General Gentner Drummond says Oklahomans don't want to fund religious schools.
If we fund one, then we have to fund all, and it's just a slippery slope.
Justice Barrett has recused herself, possibly leading to a split decision that would uphold the Oklahoma Supreme Court's block on the proposal. Ukraine and the U.S. signed a minerals agreement granting U.S. access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals. The deal addresses $175 billion in U.S. aid and signals commitment to a peace process focused on a free Ukraine. And the NFL fined the Atlanta Falcons $250,000 and defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich $100,000 for a prank phone call made to Shedeur Sanders during the draft. Ulbrich's son admitted to making the call using his father's iPad. Sanders was selected by the Cleveland Browns in the 5th round. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
New Schools for New Orleans is committed to celebrating the hardworking teachers of New Orleans. Thank you to all the educators who came out to the 4th annual NOLA Teacher Fest at Champion Square. We had over 2,000 attendees. Special thank you to our sponsors, Allstate Sugar Bowl, Entergy New Orleans, Raising Cane's, Align Ed New Orleans, Agenda for Children, and Oshner Children's for their commitment and support. Teachers and school leaders, enjoy the summer break.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK.
Everybody, welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. My co-pilot this week is the Will Sutton. Hey, Will.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
If you're just joining us, you missed a phenomenal conversation. Each and every Thursday is Congressman Troy Carter Thursdays here at WBOK, but we had the pleasure of having the Congresswoman out of Texas, Jasmine Crockett, the one and only.
The fire.
The truth teller herself. So it was an amazing conversation. And if you were listening, then y'all saw me. I was just sitting there listening. I just wanted to hear her speak. So that was quite the treat. So shout out to our Congressman Troy Carter. And look, our adopted Congresswoman, Jasmine Crockett. Thank y'all for spending part of your morning here. But right now, we're getting ready to jump into conversation with the one and only Kathy Hambrick from Amistad Research Center. She's another person who you just get mesmerized by listening to. Welcome back, Miss Kathy. How you doing?
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for having me, WBOK.
Listen, thank you for being here. And the last time we talked, you were in like a fundraising mode. How's that going for you?
Oh, well, I want to say thank you to you because after I was on your show, I think it was at the beginning of April, kicking off our SaveBlackHistory.org campaign to raise $1 million in 30 days, $1 at a time.
Audacious.
I received phone calls from New York, California, I think Arkansas, and the donations started rolling in that day.
Oh, well, look at that.
So,
congratulations.
So what I'm here to say today, first of all, I want to say thank you to the Black press and the Black media. Thank you to the owners of WBOK. I understand you're one of a few Black-owned radio stations in the country.
Shout out to us.
And, less than 300.
That's
I'm
right.
really very interested in doing
only
more.
3 in Louisiana.
Yes, and only 3 in Louisiana. I don't think your listeners realize how important you are. I mean, yes, we can listen to podcasts from all over the country. Yes, we get our news from the national networks and underground networks. But I can tell you, based upon the calls that I've received after being on your show, you have followers from New Orleans scattered all over the world and all over the country, and they appreciate you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you to our listening audience. I tell everybody, I brag about the WBOK listening audience because they are true chronic listeners. They listen each and every day, and they listen all day long. That's not just a tagline. That's really a reality. So we're grateful that whatever we've done here at WBOK helps the Amistad Research Center, because we need you to survive. If you don't survive, our history doesn't survive. So we need you. So shout out to the donors.
Yes, and last time we talked about the fact that what we protect today determines what our children will be allowed to remember. And we, in the past 10 years, I think the world and America was so excited about what we call the Blacksonian, the National Museum of African American History and Culture at the Smithsonian. Since I was here last, we've all heard what's happening there.
The attack on the Smithsonian,
my good friend Lonnie Bunch is holding on steadfast to protect the collections there. The Amistad has on exhibit, on loan there, an original diary of Mary McLeod Bethune.
Wow.
We own 2 of her original diaries, which document her travels to Europe. And so we have on loan there one of her diaries, and we're waiting to hear back any minute now just to make sure that everything is secured. There's just lots of rumors out there that artifacts are being sent back to people. But I want to hear it from my colleagues who have boots on the ground
right
at the Smithsonian. Let us know, how are you doing, and how is our history being protected?
Because I did hear that they were stripping
artifacts
from
they
museum.
issued a release just yesterday afternoon saying that all this stuff is false. It's not true.
Right.
But let me just say that you are all up in and of this world. And so, yes, there are agreements when you take on something, whether it is temporary, long-term, whether it's a straight-up donation or, different ways to do that. So, yes, there are agreements.
Yes.
But in this particular case, it seems like some of the agreements that may be expiring that don't have to expire if the donor says it's okay to stay, are not even being pursued, and it's just, okay, it's time, it's over.
Yes.
Is that?
And I mean, that's normal practice. If you have an agreement or a contract on a loan, like our loan of the Mary McLeod Bethune diary goes through next year. So we have not been contacted, but there are other agreements, like you say, that are coming to an end. Will that contract be renewed, or will those artifacts be returned? When the Smithsonian first opened, and I was on the task force for that project, they took in 45,000 artifacts. They only have the ability to show about 4,500. So you can imagine, in order to show 45,000 artifacts, the magnitude of a facility. But museums always have that challenge. You have more in your collections than you can ever show at any one given time. And that's why you find rotating exhibits, traveling exhibits, and so forth. So, until I hear from my colleagues, we must be careful of the rumor mill and the fear mongering that is perpetuated in a lot of the other media outlets.
Which is so strange, because you would think that when you hear it from media, not social media or podcasts, but you're hearing this from like big media, that they're stripping these artifacts, and then the Smithsonian itself comes out and says, well, that's not. So So are they not vetting their sources, or they're not? Are they trying to keep up with the rumor mill? You're the media. Are we not checking sources, Mr. Journalist, to make certain that what we're putting out is accurate?
Right.
Well, the difficulty in this day and time with communications, as we know it, and even for us at the Amistad, every day there's something different.
Yes.
You may get an official statement from the White House. You may get an official statement about that an executive order has been signed. Well, the next day it gets retracted. We may hear one day for instance, we are losing approximately $500,000 in our federal funding, which is why I started the SaveBlackHistory.org campaign.
Not a small amount.
Not a small amount. But, you know, one day, IMLS, the Institute of Museum and Library Services, that we're saying, we're okay. I was calling. Are you okay? Are we okay? Will we get our reimbursements? Should we keep sending in our paperwork for the next allotment or allocation of funding? They say, you're good. 2 days later, they'll call, or a friend will call once they get home and say, Doge was in the house. And then 2 days later, it's like, they're gone. We're okay. Get your paperwork in. So it's just been so sporadic from day to day. I've almost been hesitant to make an announcement because you say something one day and then the next day it's something totally different.
And you brought up a word that I want to emphasize: reimbursement. The way this federal government works with operations like yours and others, it's my understanding, you're up in it, I'm not, but you have a world of folks like you who deal with this. In a number of these cases, you're spending the money because they told you could.
Yes.
And then you're sending in the justifications and expecting the money coming back. And if somebody says, we're not doing that, you've spent some of this money and you'll be left holding the bag. Is that right?
And that's what, you know, when we talk about this $500,000 that's impacting Amistad's operations, we have reimbursement money that is due back to us that we spent. You know, paying salaries, doing programs, buying materials to protect the collection. And we've been told we will not get those reimbursements. So then we have a call. I have a call from the national, one of the legal defense funds in Washington, D.C., that will be leading the efforts to file the lawsuits for some of the nonprofits to try to get our money back. How long will a lawsuit take? You know, we still have to make payroll. We still have to keep our doors open. People are still coming to the Amistad to do research on a daily basis. We have a woman who is here, been here for a week from the UK. Now, unfortunately, I'll say fortunately first. Fortunately, the Amistad's team has been so good at writing grants that we had 15 grants in place when I was hired 2 years ago. More than half of them, 75% of them, were federal funding. So you can imagine that federal funding gets pulled back.
Yes.
We don't get the reimbursements from the money that we've spent. And so that's why I said to you a month ago when I came on the air that I was sick and tired of hearing what was going on in Washington to prevent us from keeping our organizations alive, keeping our staff in place. It was literally making me sick. I said, we have to do something. We as Black people must be proactive. And yes, it's important to communicate and talk about it, but what are we doing about it? So SaveBlackHistory.org gives you an opportunity, no matter how small the donation, be proactive and help to protect this history that we are charged with preserving at the Amistad Research Center.
So that was going to bring me to the question, how can everyday people support the work of the institution, and especially those who may not live near a culture archive? So they can go to, is the link still there for folk to donate to support the movement?
Yes. So the campaign kicked off saying $1 at a time in the spirit of the benevolent societies that our grandparents belong to, SaveBlackHistory.org. We're going to extend it 30 days at a time until we get to the million. If we need to get to 2 million, we will continue to do this until the 4-year term of you know who is over. what we have learned from this is that maybe we should not be so dependent on government funding.
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do, Black community, to be more self-sufficient? And that starts $1 at a time in the same spirit that our ancestors, grandparents, before there was FEMA, Red Cross, before there was government cheese, we knew how to make butter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we we have to break to let you go, but before we do so, what legacy do you hope the Amistad Research Center leaves for future generations?
Well, I know that the legacy that the Amistad leaves, and just one example is, this is the 100th year anniversary of the Louisiana Weekly newspaper that started in 1925. It was our parents' and grandparents' internet. We have the copies of the Louisiana Weekly dating back to 1925. We have copies of the Louisiana edition of the Pittsburgh Courier that started in 1910. So you can go to the Amistad's finding aid at amistadresearchcenter.org, and you can see which issues of these newspapers that we have. We're talking now with Beverly McKenna at the Tribune about getting the Tribune's collection. So we are making history each day that we live. And I want to say to you and your listeners, what kind of legacy will you leave? Please go to SaveBlackHistory.org. Let's save these issues of from the Black press and media dating back to 1910 and earlier. And we can do this. We can do this.
I know you're going, but I just want to say, if you've never been to the Amistad Research Center, make it a point to make some time and go. Just go. Don't even have a schedule. Just go.
Yes. We want to thank our guest, Ms. Kathy Hembrick from the Amistad Research Center. And if you want to donate and participate in this campaign, please go to SavingBlackHistory.org. No donation is too big or too small. We have to do it for ourselves, y'all. Thank you, Ms. Hembrick, for being here. We appreciate you so much. We're going to go to break, but when we come back, we'll hear from Laura Dunn from the NHTSA Highway Safety. She's the specialist there. We're going to hear all things safety when we come back. WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
All day long, y'all.
New Orleans never sleeps, and neither does WBOK. Now, every voice, every moment, and every show is in your pocket. Search WBOK Media wherever you get podcasts. Download, share, rate us 5 stars. Because when you support us, you amplify Black voices and the New Orleans culture.
Connect with NOLA Public Schools. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and X for the latest updates. Sign up for District Digest, our official newsletter where we share district achievements, celebrate student successes, and keep you informed about our vision of providing a high-quality education. And don't miss our school board meetings. Watch in person or live stream on YouTube. Stay informed. Stay engaged. Visit nolapublicschools.com today. Again, that's nolapublicschools.com.
Tune in to The Monitor's Mic, where we talk about oversight, policing, and you. Hosted by the Office of Independent Police Monitor, we're here to shine a light on policing issues that matter, from real-time policing updates to in-depth interviews. Every Friday at noon on WBOK.
Hello, I'm Gary Clark. Please tune in to Dr. Clark 101, The Living Classroom, which is broadcasted weekly every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. on WBOK 1230 AM on your dial. And as always, it's been a pleasure.
Hey, New Orleans, look for important changes to your natural gas service. This summer, Delta Utilities takes over for Entergy Gas with a Louisiana-born, Louisiana-based approach to safe, clean, reliable natural gas. No interruptions or rate changes due to the transition, just dependable service and modernized technology to keep you running smoothly. Get to know us at deltautilities.com and stay tuned for more later this summer. Delta Utilities, focused on natural gas, committed to New Orleans.
Making a difference in the community. WBOK 1230 AM.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK.
And we are back. Happy Thursday. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I'm your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. Shout out to my co-pilot, the Will Sutton. Hey, Will.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, New Orleans.
We want to once again thank our guest, Ms. Kathy Hambrick from the Amistad Research Center, SavingBlackHistory.org. You can go there so you could join in on the campaign to not only preserve but to save our Black history. We want to once again thank our Congressman, Troy Carter, and Representative Jasmine Crockett for joining us this morning. If you missed that opportunity, you missed a good one, but she will be here for the State of the People Power Tour, which is happening next Thursday and Friday.
May 8th and 9th.
May 8th and 9th.
The only stop that
has
gets
2
2 days.
Yes, so
every
we're
place
special.
else they go on is 1 day.
Yeah.
Got 2 days.
So if you want to
and
catch the Congresswoman.
It's not a ticketed thing. So y'all need to look into this and take a look. We can tell you more.
Yeah. State of the People Power Tour happening next week, Thursday and Friday, May 8th and 9th. And Representative Jasmine Crockett will be featured there. Our Congressman Troy Carter won't be there. His child is graduating, so shout out to the graduate.
Family
so he's
first.
going to be there with his kid, but he has a nice proxy in place. I'll take her. I'll take her. But pretty soon we're going to hear from Laura Dunn from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. She's a specialist there talking about Heat Stroke Prevention Day to address hot car deaths affecting children nationwide. There's a new campaign for it. You know, I remember one time, Will, we were seeing hot car deaths all across the country. And there was some talk about the automobile industry putting in built-in safety measures that if you put your child in the car and then you get out and the child is still there, the car beeps in some sort of way or it won't lock in some sort of way to make sure that you check the back seat.
Right.
Some things, some safety measures from the automobile industry were coming down, even with this idea that if you have your child there, they were like the mirroring system could see them. It was all sorts of things being done because children were dying all across the country. Some intentional. We found that some parents purposely left their children in the cars and they were prosecuted, of course, but some people just innocently were leaving their children in the car. There was one father whose wife would always take the children to school. And this was a morning where he was asked to take the baby to daycare, but he went about his normal routine and he went to work. And then he didn't realize until his first break that the baby was in the car because the daycare was calling the mom saying, "Where's the baby?" And then he remembered
he was in a zone.
Yeah, that he was supposed to drop the baby off. So hot car deaths are a real phenomenon. They at one time the numbers were ridiculous all over the country. I've not been hearing about them as much as of late as we've heard before, but it's still something to take into account, especially as we head into the summer months.
Yeah, we know when Jazz Fest comes. I mean, that's kind of starting the heat season.
Yeah, the heat wave in some of our cities are unbearable. So like to sit in a car for a few minutes, you begin to overheat. So just thinking about temperatures going into the hundreds inside of a locked car for a baby, and even animals as well. People leaving animals in cars. It's just not a safe thing to do. So we're excited to hear about Laura Dunn. But I asked you off air if you were familiar with the Antoinette Frank update that was coming about, and she was sentenced to death for the shooting deaths of a restaurant worker and a fellow NOPD officer, but her lawyers are seeking to overturn her death sentence. Did you hear about that?
No.
Yeah. I think that's one of those cases that has so many layers to it that you're like, you want to talk, you want to get into it, but it's like a rabbit hole. Because everything that I know about the case, she shouldn't have been on the police force to begin with, like full stop, right? But there's so many layers to this case, but her lawyers are seeking to overturn her death conviction. Maybe we could talk about that in a later show, but right now we have Miss Laura Dunn on the line with us. She is from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. She's a specialist there, and we're going to talk about National Heat Stroke Prevention Day and this push to address hot car deaths affecting children nationwide. There's a new campaign. Good morning, Ms. Dunn. Welcome to the Good Morning Show. You're on with Dr. Ashanta White and Will Sutton.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
No, thank you for being here. Will and I were talking, as we were waiting for you to get here, and I just mentioned that, like, at one time we were hearing about hot car deaths too regularly, but those stories seem to have kind of come down from what we were hearing about. Has the numbers improved there in terms of parents or family members leaving babies in cars?
The numbers improved a lot in the year 2020. Things were so different that year. And unfortunately, we've kind of had a slow climb back to kind of where things were before. So unfortunately, in 2024, 39 children did lose their lives to pediatric heat stroke. And it's an average of about 37 deaths per year that we see.
And that's nationally?
Yes.
So talking about those numbers, I guess we can start with you telling us about the significance of National Heat Stroke Prevention Day and what the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is doing to accomplish their goals this year.
Absolutely. So the weather's getting warmer. We want to remind folks of the dangers that hot vehicles pose to children. We especially want to reach families with children who are, newborn to about age 5. They're most susceptible to heat stroke. We want parents to remember that phrase: stop, look, lock. Stop what you're doing. Make sure you check your back seat when you get to your destination. Lock up that car. Don't leave your kids in the car for any reason. No amount of time is safe for that to be happening. We have a new ad campaign. It's called Never Happens, and it's in partnership with the Ad Council. And we need to show parents that, unfortunately, that never scenario can happen to them. And it unfortunately happens to dozens of families every year. So we want to talk about ways to prevent that and kind of risk factors for this phenomenon happening.
Well, I know when I'm driving, especially on some days where I've awakened, I've dressed, I've gone to the car, I find myself getting into the car, and it's like kind of a daze from walking out the door and getting in the car door, and I'm in a zone. I'm in a routine. How much of this is folks going about their daily routine and maybe forgetting a change in their routine or something like that?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest factors in this phenomenon is a change in routine. So many deaths have happened when that morning routine was different for whatever reason. So the parent is dropping off at childcare who maybe doesn't normally do so. Maybe there's a medical appointment that's not normal. about half of these happen when a child is supposed to be dropped off at school or daycare, and parents or caregivers kind of switch into that mode of what we would call autopilot, right? I have to go to work. This is where I go. It's kind of like when you leave work on a certain day and you thought you wanted to stop at the grocery store and you accidentally just drive home instead because that's what you're used to doing. That's your routine.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how this works cognitively with people. So we want to talk about some simple kind of preventative measures that people can take as safeguards to kind of prevent against that.
So there are three main types of high car debts. That's the forgotten, gain access, and then knowingly left behind. Which is most common, and what preventative steps can address each type?
So the most common is forgotten. It's about 52%. And in order to prevent the forgotten deaths, we talk with parents about, putting something that you need for the day in your back seat, right? Your work bag, your badge, your phone, something that you have to have for the rest of the day. So parents have to physically stop, open that back seat, and look in the back seat and make sure that the kids are not there. Another thing that we have talked about, especially with parents of those younger kids that are going to school or childcare, is make an arrangement with your childcare providers that if your child does not arrive within 10 minutes of when they normally do, have them give you a call to say, is your child coming today or not? So that causes people to kind of stop what they're doing and make sure that that child is where they need to be. Maybe have the other parents give you a call that morning and say, did you drop off our child? And, just extra safeguards in place for that. Another way that these fatalities happen is what we call gained access, where kids are getting into vehicles unsupervised and then they're not able to get out again. Sometimes they're playing a game. Sometimes they want to pretend like they're driving a car for whatever reason, and they don't have the dexterity or strength maybe to kind of pull that door handle and push at the same time to open the door. And in some cases, the child lock has been engaged. So to prevent those deaths, we want parents to make sure that whenever you're not in the car, you are locking that vehicle, even in your own driveway, and putting those keys and key fobs up and out of reach for children. Another thing that you might want to do is have that conversation with your kids that inside of a car is just not a safe place to play.
And when we hear I'm sorry, my apologies. When we hear about heat stroke deaths, we tend to think about temperatures being extremely hot. But there are some cases where there's mild weather that can be just as dangerous for children being locked in cars. It says as low as 60 degrees.
Yes, this is true. So the inside of your car heats up by about 20 degrees in only 10 minutes. So, and it keeps getting exponentially hotter. It's kind of a greenhouse effect. So even on when it's not the hottest day of the year, right? It's just kind of an average day. Heat stroke is still a risk.
That was something different. I didn't think about it in those terms because I was telling Will off air. Even when it's hot and I sit in my car for just a few minutes, you can feel the temperature drastically change once the car is turned off. So I think that's just good to know too, that when you think about heat stroke, that you think about extreme temperatures in the hundreds, 115, things of that nature. But are there any tools or technologies available today, like car alarms, apps, or reminders that can help prevent these tragedies? Because you mentioned having your spouse call or having the daycare call just to ask if the baby has been dropped off. Are there any tools or technologies that you know of that could also help parents remember their children in cars?
So as an agency, we're studying new technologies, focusing on some of those available systems that can alert drivers and others. There are some rear seat occupant detection systems that have come on the market that we are testing. And vehicle manufacturers are trying to implement. So I would encourage people to check some of those out. Some folks may have seen that in newer cars. When you turn the car off, you might get a message on your dash that says, remember to check the back seat. That happens for some vehicle brands. So we are continuing to test all of those systems and, trying to see what can be implemented to keep kids safe.
And so we're in hot and humid New Orleans. So we have longer heat season, and we have a lot of humidity. How are we doing in Louisiana based on what you've watched over the years?
So Louisiana has 38 heat stroke deaths since 1998. But in Louisiana, you guys actually have the highest death rate per capita for this phenomenon. So it's something that folks should really be aware of, have a lot of awareness about what's going on and kind of where their kids are, what they can do to prevent this from happening.
Well, that's not good to hear. That we're the
I know.
highest,
I'm sorry.
death rate.
Yeah.
But if that's our truth and that's our reality, that should be something that we all want to change. And I know we've been saying parents, but in New Orleans we have a lot of family villages where the auntie or uncle so and so or big mama is taking care of the kid or fill in the gap because mama's got to go work and that kind of thing. So this extends to other parts of the family in the community where nanny might be filling in, and nanny needs to be aware of these things as well.
Absolutely. I'm a parent of young children. My mother is retired and watches my children at some point during the week, and we certainly have had these conversations. Everybody has a part to play in preventing vehicular heat stroke in kids. And, even if you don't have your own children, make sure you're locking your car when it's in the driveway so no neighborhood kids could be getting into your car. Another thing to consider is if you're in public and you see a child left in a car, if you see them in distress in a vehicle, act immediately. Call 911, get that child help, get that child out of the car. Because really every minute counts, and you could really make a difference for a child that's in distress.
Yeah.
I'm really stuck on this highest death rate per capita.
Yeah.
Have we improved at all?
Since 1998, are you asking?
Yeah. Any idea?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
Since 1998, with Louisiana as the highest death rate per capita, since 1998, have we improved at all in Louisiana?
We lost her. I know.
Are you there?
Yeah, she went out. It doesn't. Well, it doesn't seem like we're improving because she said we had 38 deaths since 1998, and then she said we have the highest debt per capita in high car debts.
I mean,
so I don't know that we're improving. I don't know how we lost her. Hopefully, I mean, maybe we can get it back. But we were getting ready to close out with her anyway. But I want to thank her, Laura Dunn, from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. She's a specialist there, and we're talking National Heat Stroke Prevention Day. And it's jarring to hear that New Orleans has lost 38 children since 1998 to high car debts, and that we are leading that phenomenon per capita. So we absolutely need the education of it. No matter how quickly you think you're going to run in and out of somewhere, like don't ever leave your children in the car, turned off, windows up, that sort of thing. Set some sort of schedule where somebody can remind you that it's your day to take the kids, and maybe y'all have a routine of just checking in to drop them off. Just small little things can be the difference between life or death for a child that's locked into a vehicle that can't help themselves. Right? We have her back for a few minutes. Sorry we lost you there, but we're glad you came back. Will's question was, has Louisiana gotten better since 1998 in the hot debt demises of our children?
I think things have ebbed and flowed a little bit throughout the years. You haven't always had the highest, and just a few years ago with Oklahoma, it's kind of shifted. It depends on where things happen on a year-to-year basis. But I would really encourage folks in your community to get this message out to folks who maybe wouldn't normally hear it. So, retailers, there's several retailers nationally we know of that do messaging kind of in their parking lots and in their doors as you're entering the store of, oh, do you have everybody with you today? Don't leave anybody in the car. That could certainly be an option in terms of getting this message to people that wouldn't normally hear it, working with transit agencies, large employers in the area of making, having this conversation with their employees about making sure that you're not leaving anybody behind in the parking lot. Everybody is where they need to be today. And, just that importance of locking your cars when you're not in it and making sure everybody in your communities is aware of, all those dangers that can be posed by that.
Well, thank you, Laura, for joining us this morning. We really appreciate the invaluable information, and we're going to continue to do our part here at WBOK just to give those tips out, especially as we head into the thrust of our summer months that can the temperature here can climb. And so we'll continue to do our part here. We wanted to thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Have a blessed one. Listen, we want to thank our guest, Laura Dunn from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, talking to us about National Heat Stroke Prevention Day. And we're just learning, Will and I, that we had 38 hot car deaths since 1998. And we're leading, unfortunately, per capita with the high death rate in this phenomenon of hot car deaths. And so we definitely want to combat that by education. And so the most common form is forgotten. According to Laura, people are forgetting their children. Mm-hmm. So maybe you put your purse back there, when you have the baby back there. And not to say that your purse is more important than your baby, but we tend to grab that first, or your keys or something. Right. Most of us have push to start cars. Put your keys back there so you can't get in the house without going in the back seat. Something has to happen, but we have to figure out what that looks like.
Right.
And it starts with
education.
education.
Nobody wants to lose their baby.
Nobody. Starts with education. We're going to go to break, but when we come back, we're not going to jump into conversation. If you want to join the conversation, it's 504-582-9422 right here, WBOK 1230 AM. What New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
All day long.
This is your news update for WBOK from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
The second weekend of Jazz Fest is here. Don't miss Lenny Kravitz, Thames, Patti LaBelle, Trombone Shorty, Kamasi Washington, The Wailers featuring Julian Marley, Lettucey Sings Nina, Morris Day and The Time, Ricky Dillard and New G, Terrence Blanchard, and hundreds more. The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival presented by Shell. Tickets and info at nojazzfest.com. Miller Lite, official sponsor of Jazz Fest.
This summer, let your child's creativity shine at Camp Art, New Orleans' most vibrant, arts-driven camp experience for kids ages 4 to 12. Hosted by Beyond the Stage, Camp Art blends visual art, theater, music, dance, and creative writing with New Orleans history and culture. Plus, field trips, guest artists, and camper showcases. With full-day programming before and after care and sessions starting June 9th, it's the perfect fit for working parents. Fun, enriching, unforgettable. Register now at beyondthestagellc.com/campart and follow us on social media at Beyond the Stage LLC.
This is Jackie Jones with Class Act Entertainment. Join us on May 11th at the Honor Thy Mother Theater Brunch in partnership with WBOK at the Jean Lafitte Auditorium. Experience the red carpet with live interviews and photo ops, along with a chance to win a trip to Las Vegas. Highlighting the afternoon is the original stage play, Mama. The finale, live concert with Piano Man G. Get your tickets at 504-491-1179.
Visit DePaul's new Algiers Health Center at 2801 General de Gaulle Drive to receive primary and preventive care for both adults and children. Services also include behavioral health, imaging, and on-site pharmacy, vision, Medicaid enrollment assistance, and more. For appointments, visit DePaulCommunityHealthCenters.org or call 504-207-3060.
Why'd I go to the doctor? One day at the firehouse, I was so lightheaded I could barely stand. Even my crew noticed. Getting checked out was the right call. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit NoTimeToWait.com. Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Hey, everybody, it's Kimber White Dupree.
And it's Graylin Bryant Banks from the front porch. We're coming up next.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK.
And we are back. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. Happy Thursday, everybody. I'm your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. Shout out to my co-pilot, the one and only Will Sutton. Hey, Will.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's 8:51, guys.
It is. It's almost time for us to close out, but I want to remind everybody that there is an event, the 10th Annual Honor Thy Mother Theater Brunch is taking place May 11th. The doors open at 11 a.m. at the Jean Lafitte Auditorium, 4953 City Park Street. For more information or to get your tickets, you can do so right here at WBOK, or you can call 504-491-1179. I'll be there as I am the host of the event of the Honor Thy Mother Theater Brunch, where the original stage play Mama will take place. I'm excited about it. Might even consider bringing my mama. What you think about that, Will?
Yeah.
So shout out to the folk over at Class Action Entertainment. But on the break, Will was telling me a story about our Attorney General, and Liz Morrell is her name. What is she up to these days, Will?
Jumping into more New Orleans stuff.
Jumping into more New Orleans stuff by way of our jail system this time, right?
Yep, this time it's the sheriff's office. And Joe Craney from TimesPicayune-NOLA.com. I'm just going to read the first part of this, and then we can kind of talk about this. In a hearing Wednesday on Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrow's push to eliminate sanctuary policies for immigrants in the New Orleans jail, a federal judge peppered a state attorney with questions over what she at one point called, quote unquote, insufficient arguments for the attorney general to be allowed to intervene in the case. U.S. Magistrate Judge Janice Van Meerveld didn't rule Wednesday on Murrow's request, filed earlier this year in a decade-old lawsuit brought by a former pair of inmates. They alleged years ago they were illegally held at the Orleans Parish lockup for months at the request of immigration agents. The case led to far tighter restrictions around immigration holds at the jail under a policy enacted in 2013 through a settlement agreement with then-Sheriff Marlin Gusman's office. Now, with President Donald Trump vowing to deport some 20 million people from the U.S., conservatives in state government are pressing the issue. With the support of Governor Jeff Landry, Murrow argues that the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office should be erased after a state law passed last year that effectively banned so-called sanctuary cities in Louisiana. The agreement for the New Orleans jail now sits fundamentally at odds with state law, Murrow argues.
I also have a problem with her misrepresenting the commentary of our sheriff, because in the court filings, it says that the Attorney General quoted our Sheriff Susan Hudson as she does not oppose the state's intervention in the case. But a spokesperson for Hudson said that's not exactly true. It's more accurate that we take no position regarding the state's intervention. A sheriff's office spokesperson said in an email statement on Wednesday. So that's vastly different than what the Attorney General is alleging what was said, and she put it in a document. She's saying that Susan Hudson, our sheriff, does not oppose the state's intervention in the case. And the sheriff's office spokesperson said it's not true. What we actually said was we take no position regarding the state's intervention. So while she has not taken a position for or against increased collaboration with ICE, in an interview with Fox 8 in December, the sheriff noted that the jail's resources were far too stretched to take on immigration enforcement. And so I'm wondering if we're paying attention. Because the first thing you said was, what did you say? Your opening statement was she's
stuff in New Orleans.
More getting into New Orleans business more and more, right? It's always New Orleans, New Orleans, New Orleans. And so we have to be very mindful and keep our eyes and ears open because all of this stuff is interconnected. The article also talks about Governor Landry, and they reference him as a longtime immigration hardliner and Trump ally who has worked with Republican lawmakers in the state to enact laws that encourage those collaborations. So I have a problem there because as the governor, I mean, you're not just supposed to be working in partnership with Republican lawmakers. You're supposed to be working with the entire body to make certain that whatever laws we're pushing works in the best interest of all people in Louisiana. And so that's very telling that you're working directly with just the Republican lawmakers because you're looking for those people who also acquiesce to Trump or lean heavily into Trumpism. That's what I get from reading that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not how you read that?
Yeah, I mean, the part of the sheriff's responsibility is to run that jail. A lot of people are there. This is pre-trial, not convicted of anything, and may not be able to afford bond.
Yeah, right.
And they're in there, but it's the city's responsibility through the sheriff's office to take care of whoever is there. Now, they may have different statuses in life. They may have a PhD.
Yeah.
They may have.
But as you stated,
a
it's
GED.
pre-trial. They're not convicted of anything.
They are not convicted, and their statuses may be different.
And so
that includes people who may be immigrants, but that does not mean they shouldn't be here. And the way these things are happening with ICE or ICE-like people going into homes and disturbing unsuspected, surprising people with picking them up and taking them away and not explaining
no due process,
anything.
Zero due process
to them.
The article also says, though, Will, as Attorney General Landry criticized the policy adopted by the New Orleans Police Department under a long-running federal consent decree that blocks officers from enforcing immigration laws. That's also very telling, right? There's all this criticism for how our leaders are leading, how our police departments are governing. There's all this criticism about how our judiciary is operating. They seem to have found fault with every layer of our government here in the city of New Orleans, and I don't think that that's by happenstance. I think it's part of a grand plan by the governor with the assistance of the Attorney General to look for any which way that they can creep in to control this community. That's just my take on it.
Right.
My take on it. So we need to be mindful on every front of what's going on here. But I like what you said. It's another chance to get in New Orleans' business, right? Yep. We have to be steadfast in our resolve to protect New Orleans and to support our local elected officials and to make certain that the people of this city have a say in what happens to this city, right? We have to go, Will.
So, this immigration issue is not what Trump does out of D.C. only.
No.
This is filtering into the state.
It's like an octopus.
And filtering
he has hands
into our
from
cities.
governors.
And so,
yes.
Y'all, I'm going to use the word that they don't like. Y'all need to stay woke.
Yeah, well,
because there's stuff going on that we need to be aware of, and not just on one part of the film.
Yeah.
Not one part of the film.
Yeah.
So,
well, shout out to our guest this morning, Congressman Troy Carter, Representative Jasmine Crockett, Kathy Hambrick from the Amistad Research Center, and Laura Dunn from talking about that highway safety, right? We had a dynamic show today. it's good to be in the.
Well, I know which part you love best.
What part did I love?
You love that Congressman Crockett.
I did.
Y'all should have seen her face.
I could
Y'all
not
should
help
have seen
it.
her
I could
face.
not help it.
Oh my goodness.
I could not help it. But thank you, Jasmine Crockett, for joining us. We appreciate you. I appreciate you. But y'all stay tuned. Up next for the Front Porch, we're Graylin and Kimba. As far as the Good Morning Show, Dr. Wyatt, Will Sutton. We're gonna see y'all tomorrow. This is WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about
all day long.
All day long, y'all.
Have you heard the secret of what New Orleans is talking about? I promise everything will be